The news doesn't tell you the news. It tells you who to be afraid of. And every single day, every single time, it tells you to be afraid of black people. This is what happens when you have 7 families that control damn near every screen you look at. This is what also happens when profit depends on fear. So I'm just gonna jump straight into this video. I'm gonna read something from the Equal Justice Initiative first, and then we're gonna get right into the clips of people stating their opinions. And in my mind, they're stating facts about what they have seen in regards to the legacy media or media in general, the bias that they have towards black people. So enough of me rambling. Let's talk about it. The report, Innocent Until Proven Guilty, a look at media coverage of criminal defendants in the U.S., uses data from 10 criminal cases to analyze differing portrayals of black defendants and white defendants, resulting in unreliable court outcomes. The data points to racial bias in over 20 different topics surrounding media coverage, including the use of imagery, language choices, the framing of the accused and the victim, and reporter background. Racially biased media coverage has been a substantial factor contributing to unreliable and unjust outcomes in the criminal legal system. EGI Director Brian Stevenson said, news media have often reinforced the presumption of guilt and dangerousness assigned to black people when reporting on crime, while devaluing the lives of black people and the harm they suffer when victimized. American media can and should do better in eliminating racially biased coverage. Some of the findings from the report include mugshots were used in coverage of 45% of cases involving black people accused of crimes compared to only 8% of cases involving white defendants. White victims were nearly 4 times more likely to be presented in photos with friends and family than black people victimized by crime. Media coverage was 50% more likely to refer to white defendants by name as compared to black defendants.
Those messages are that black men are dangerous because if you look at the news, there have been studies on this. Local news overrepresents black folks as overrepresents white folks as victims. So the message that gets sent is they're dangerous, and specifically to you. They are not only bad people, they're going to hurt you. So therefore, we want to keep them on that side of town. We want to keep their children in those schools over there. We don't want to work around them. We don't want to live around them, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that message comes through loud and clear in the way that media represents people of color. You know, whenever we thinking about Tamir Rice, the 12-year-old child that was shot in Cleveland by police, when that happened, what did they do? The first news story in Cleveland that made a big splash was about Tamir Rice's parents and the history of and among his parents, not about the cop that we talk worse about black victims than we do white.
That's why when you look at news and media, even when a black person gets unalived unjustly by a cop or a white person, the first thing they do is bring out the bad news about them.
Of course.
When Mike Brown got unalived,
of course,
the first thing they show was some video that don't really show him stealing, but they got to paint the picture of him stealing.
Timothy Kaufman got stabbed by white supremacists downtown. Homeless man picking up bottles. Stabbed him so hard with a big knife that they heard the knife bang against the concrete. First thing the news started talking about, and I flipped out on a black woman reporter from Pix 11, first thing the news started talking about was, he got arrested for hopping a train. He got arrested for weed.
Right.
That's the public relations fight that we fight against.
Exactly.
Right?
Because they have to put that propaganda.
I was going back and forth with another political pundit, and they were talking about, they were talking about the whole slavery thing. I said that does not apply to me. I said this is how you know, like, you don't, as much as y'all talk bad about black people and y'all go into your statistics and all that, I'm like, you don't know nothing outside of the lies that these fake statistics and hyped up news. Cause it's funny because, like, y'all be saying, okay, Fox News is a lie, CNN is a lie, all these news stations is a lie. Y'all will say that when they go against your favorite political component, but then all of a sudden when they say something about black people, all of a sudden everything they say is true. Y'all will say that media is lying 24/7 when they go against somebody that you love, but then when it comes to black people, all of a sudden the media is not lying that one time.
That last brother brought up a really valuable point. You ever thought about that? You ever really sat back and just thought about that? Like, how can you go around at one breath talk about the fake news media? You know, your favorite president, you guys, the people who voted for this orange idiot. Oh, it's fake news, fake news. Anything bad on him is all of a sudden fake news. But boy, oh boy, let them say anything negative about a black person, and all of a sudden, like he say, like you believe it. Where does that come from? You know where it comes from. It comes from bias, whether it's racial bias or whatever. There's a bias implanted there. So it's like you have selective truths that you choose to believe. It's selective for y'all. It's hypocrisy to me. It's a bunch of bullshit. Either the news is fake or it's not. Pick a lane. Pick a struggle. You can't have it both ways. They can't be lying when they're talking about your orange messiah, but then they can't be telling facts when they're literally cherry picking and trying to already paint us in a negative light, because already this has been proven time and time again. They've done studies on this, and it ain't just black people that's doing studies on this, okay? The simple fact is the bias is systemic. Everything is systemic. When you put biased or racist people in power, their bias will always show. Everything that they're against, they're going to continue to be against it. It's not like you're against it over here as a private citizen, but then when you hop on camera or get behind a desk or put on a badge or a doctor's coat or nurse's uniform or teacher's uniform, if teachers even wear a uniform. But when you go to your place of profession, all of a sudden you turn your bias off. Nah, that ain't how it works. And then you wonder why black people want to go to see black doctors. They want the black registry. They want, where can I find a black doctor? Not talking about that clown that's trying to sue them because he can't get on the list. It's not for you. It's common sense, but you know, that's a topic for a different time. But people don't take their bias off. They put on a mask. They try to pretend they're not one way, but everybody is biased in their own formal way.
Let's talk about how traditional media and social media have shaped the image and damaged the image of black people. For decades, news outlets have overreported negative stories about black people while underreporting positive ones. And that created a cycle. Audiences saw limited narratives, and those narratives reinforced negative stereotypes. Fast forward to today, and things have gotten even more complicated. With AI, misinformation spreads faster and looks even more real than before. Deep fakes, biased algorithms, and distorted images can make false stories about black people go viral before the truth even comes out. That's why media literacy now matters more than ever. We have to question what we see, check our sources, and call out biased content, because protecting the black image means protecting the truth.
What's up, y'all? Because I'll be hearing a lot of people and family members mention black on black crime and all this stuff. Like, don't believe everything the media show you. And let me show you why the media portray black people how they portray black people, because it's rooted in racism. Let me show you. Let's get into it. If you were to rely on the national news outlets reporting, you are likely to think that African Americans are overwhelmingly poor, relying on welfare, and have absentee fathers and criminals, despite what government data shows. A new study. Major media outlets routinely present distorted pictures of black families, portraying them as dependent and dysfunctional, while white families are more likely to be depicted as sources of social stability, according to a report released by Color of Change. Over time, however, political leaders and the media has worked to pathologize black families in the American imagination to justify slavery, Jim Crow, mass incarceration, widespread economic inequity, and urban disinvestment, as well as to gain and maintain political and social power. Black families represent 59% of the poor portrayed in the media, according to the analysis, but account for just 27% of Americans in poverty. White families make up 17% of the poor depicted in the news media, but make up 66% of the American poor, the study said. Black people are also nearly three more times likely than whites to be portrayed as dependent on welfare. The study showed black fathers were shown spending time with their kids almost half as often as white fathers. Blacks represent 37% of criminals shown in the news, but constitute to only 26% of those arrested on criminal charges, the study says. The news media portray whites as criminals 28% of the time, when FBI crime reports show that they make up 77% of crime suspects. And I'll just say that to say, don't let the media fool you. Don't let the media have you have this stereotype on black people because of what they showing you, because it's not what it seems. Like, they literally only doing that to defend their stereotypes on us and their racism. So don't fall for it. Peace, love, and light.
The news often shows black people as violent because of a mix of history, racism, and profit. From slavery times, stereotypes painted black people as dangerous to justify oppression. Media picked this up and still pushes it because fear-based stories grab attention and make money. When crime involves a black suspect, headlines blow it up. When it's a white suspect, the coverage softens the language. They're called mentally ill or a lone wolf. This creates a double standard. By doing this, the news shapes public perception. It teaches people to link blackness with crime, even though that's not even close to being true. The violent ones are those who orchestrated the transatlantic slave trade, Jim Crow, the destruction of Black Wall Street, spread smallpox, Tuskegee experiment. Bottom line, the news highlights violence in black communities to feed stereotypes, protect power structures, and profit off fear.
Middle Eastern does something, they're a terrorist. Black person does something, they're gang related, they're a thug. But if a white guy walks into a church, 9 people, what do they lead with on the news? And today, in an isolated incident, a lone walked into a church, opening fire and 9 people. It's always a lone. They always separate him as quickly as possible. I love how they do that. And the first thing they always go to is mental instability. He was a troubled young man. Yes, and a terrorist. Yeah, but he was mentally unstable, just like terrorists. And that's exactly what a terrorist is. There's no normal reason to blow yourself up. That is ridiculous as
You know what's crazy about that last clip is that Trevor Noah was raised in apartheid South Africa. He wasn't even raised in America. Wasn't born, wasn't raised here. And the fact that he's been here long enough to be able to see it for himself. Now, what does that say? What does that say about the people who've been living here? What does that say? And I'm specifically talking about white people. What does that say about the white people who live here and don't understand? See, he's half and half. His mother's black, his father's white, or Dutch, or whatever I think he said. But he's a biracial man, and even he can see the discrepancy. Even he can see the disparity. And that goes to show you that the people who refuse to acknowledge the truth, the people who refuse to acknowledge the statistics, because here's the thing, everybody always points to stats. Oh, the statistics and per capita and all of this, except for when it's not in their favor. When the statistics point to something else to disprove you, now all of a sudden the stats don't matter, right? And the fact that this man can come from another country and has lived in the United States long enough to be able to see it with his own eyes and put it in one of his stand-ups as a joke, but it's not really a joke. That's why I love comedians, because they'll tell the truth in a joke. And the fact that people refuse to open their eyes and see this, it's like, do I really have any hope for this country? A lot of days I don't.
Those boys would have been railroaded into prison. They would be behind bars right now, and there would be a national demand. Fox would be opening with this. Fox would do this day and night until those boys were in prison. They would have been already charged with murder. There would have been and then any other young black man in that community, they would have been dragging them off the street, throwing their hands behind their back, throwing them down on the street. Or imagine if you did that same picture and it was 3 brown people, or any of them was an undocumented immigrant.
The police are able to use the press to make the white public think that 90% or 99% of the Negroes in the Negro community are criminals. And once the white public is convinced that most of the Negro community is a criminal element, then this automatically paves the way for the police to move into the Negro community, exercising Gestapo tactics, stopping any black man who is on the sidewalk, whether he is guilty or whether he is innocent, whether he is well-dressed or whether he is poorly dressed, whether he is educated or whether he is dumb, whether he's a Christian or whether he's a Muslim. As long as he is black and a member of the Negro community, the white public thinks that the white policeman is justified in going in there and trampling on that man's civil rights and on that man's human rights.
It took a white man to tell me. He says, how is it when a black man kill a black man, it's not really outrage?
Yeah.
But when a white man kills a black man, it's gonna start a riot.
The American media has manipulated the narrative of crime. Black on black crime is a made up thing. You have never heard white on white crime. Never heard the Asian on Asian crime. They have tried to fraction and compartmentalize us to feel as if where the crime is where we are.
Go ahead.
The lead murderers in America are white men. The lead robbers in America are white men. The largest amount of rapists are white men. The highest number of domestic abusers is white men. The highest number of arrested pedophiles is white men. The greatest number of drug dealers arrested is white men. But if you ask the average American who are the proponents of crime, is a black face to it. They're now trying to create this narrative that the immigrants are bringing in the crime because they never want to own up to what it is that they have done. Part of our responsibility is to pull the sheets off. We had a shooting here in Georgia not long ago. A young man named Colt, 14 years old, went shot up his high school. His father's now being charged. Can you imagine what conversation me and you would be having if Colt was black and Colt's black father gave him a gun? The television, the internet would explode on the irresponsibility of black fathers, on why it is that young black men have guns and are carrying guns. It has always shifted to make black men feel hyper-aggressive, hypersexual, and hyper-criminalized. It's part of a larger, historic, original sin of America that always criminalizes and points their fingers at black men when it's absolutely not true. The overwhelming majority, Cam, of black men who are under penal supervision are under penal supervision for non-violent offenses. They're on ankle bracelets, home monitors, on parole, on probation, for possession, not for distribution. It may not sound like it's significant, but it's very meaningful. And so that's why it is that we've got to ask the hard and the difficult questions. Where is criminal justice in America? And is justice just us?
You see, I've often thought about this as a father to my 3 children. I've been in their lives since day one, have helped raise them up right, try to teach them to do the right things in life. But ultimately, at the end of the day, especially as your kids get older, you realize that kids have free will. But what you don't do as a parent is you don't put them in a position to fail. That's what Colt's father did for him. You have no reason buying a 15-year-old a weapon, any teenager a weapon for that matter. Now, I get it. I come from a different culture. They have a different culture in the white community where, they live and die by the gun. Everything is a gun for them, whatever. That's a culture I won't understand to a certain degree. I'm pro Second Amendment though, and I'm pro black people having weapons, right? And if you haven't noticed by now, I am entirely biased. I am entirely pro black, and that's not going to change. The difference is I don't hide my bias, right? I have to advocate on behalf of black folks because it's not being done anywhere else. And so I agree with all of the sentiments that were shared in these videos. If a black father, or a black mother for that matter, if a black child goes out there and does the unthinkable, does something that's out of character, for one, then the parents would be blasted all over the media, reporters, journalists, whatever, digging into our past to see what we've done wrong as individuals, as parents, even though it's the kid that goes out here and does whatever they did. As if, going back to what I said, as if the children don't have free will. Now, I'm not trying to let the parents off the hook, but what I'm saying is we have to take that into account. We have to factor that in, right? But in this case, what he was talking about with Colt, like the father is the one that gave him the weapon. No, you're on the hook for that one. Now, if your son or your daughter, your child is out there and they get their hands on something like that, not in your presence, it's only so much you can do as a parent. You can only protect them from so much. You can only shelter them from so much. And we forget that these kids go to school. They go to school around other kids, and who knows what they're being taught in their households. So yes, the media is completely biased when it comes to reporting on black issues. Like, they can't leave black people alone at all. Like I said in one of my previous videos, I believe, it's like, growing up watching the news and seeing the bias, you would think white people never committed a crime ever because they just plaster black people all over the news as if we're the only ones in the country that commit crimes. Overrepresented, over policed, and overrepresented in the media in a negative light.
The black press, as you may not know, is turning 200 years old next year. And I point that out to say that black people, black journalists have always been the ones who have had to tell the truth for our folks and to show the fullness and the dignity and the humanity of black communities all across this country when we know that that was not something that mainstream legacy publications were willing to do. How many of you, you're scrolling, you see a story, you share it on one of your platforms? Raise your hand if you're doing that. Thank you. Because look, folks see folks like us up here on TV, maybe you see us on the internet, maybe you see us on your platforms, but it's you all. You all are the people that the people in your family, your friends, your coworkers, you all are the people that they trust to share something. If you share that, that means so much more than anybody that somebody doesn't know just because they're seeing us on a screen or hearing our voice on the radio or on a podcast or on a social media platform. So if there's one thing that I could ask folks to do is to find trusted, honest, accurate sources of information and to be sharing those. Black journalists are among some of the most trusted messengers in our profession, and we do this because we know that our communities need that information and because we have to tell an honest and accurate story about this country.
Don't you find it very peculiar with all the redistricting and gerrymandering and all the incidents that's happening where black representatives are losing their seats in their districts? I have not seen one news media coverage on mainstream television. Not Channel 2, 4, 7, whatever local TV station there is. I haven't seen any coverage. What does that say about the news media? This guy in the White House is not the main problem. America has a serious problem with being ethical and truthful and treating all people equal. Media, you need to stop the hypocrisy. A white child gets missing, all these alerts go out. A black child gets missing, you don't hear anything until years later, if that. The media is biased against people of color. The White House is not the problem. The White House is the epitome of the problem. But in everyday life, we see the hypocrisy, the racism, the discrimination. Why? Because somebody's skin color is different as you try to go to the beach to get the same color for yourself? You talk about the butts of African American women, yet you get injections? People, stop the hypocrisy. That's why we are in the situation we are now. Feeling superiority when you don't have it. Black people, people of color, built this damn country. Yes, I am angry because what I see that's going on now, and the media is not even covering it. They're pretending like it doesn't exist. Media, you are a part of the problem.
I love what both of those black sisters had to say. Like Erin Haynes, the first sister that spoke, she, along with many other black journalists, I trust my news coming from a black person more than I do from some of these white people on TV. I'm sorry, call it what you want. I call it survival instincts, honestly. People will probably look at me and call me racist, whatever. It's a comfortability factor. You know, I trust my people. Yeah, we got some bad apples and bad seeds in our community, and so does every other race or ethnicity of people. But I trust news coming from people who I trust. And I'm gonna be brutally, blatantly honest with you. I don't trust conservatism. I don't trust conservative spaces because conservatism is just another branch of white supremacy in my mind. So you will have black conservatives out there like Officer Tatum. I don't count him as a journalist or anything, but what I'm saying is you have black people out there who are not on the same page as us, as the collective, who will side with them folks. And when them folks turn on them, they're gonna try to weasel their way back into our community asking for forgiveness. It's not gonna fucking happen. It's not gonna happen. Because if you out here slandering black folk, that can't be forgiven. Like there's certain lines you just can't cross in the black community. Like you can't go out there and shit on us and then think you're gonna turn around and try to come begging and pleading. Oh, I'm sorry. Nah, it's too late. Go back over there with them. The media has always been a big part of the problem. Like the older woman said in the last clip, saying the guy in the White House ain't the problem. I mean, he is a problem, but the fact that the media doesn't check him. See, the fourth estate, the media is supposed to put a check on power, but it's hard to do that when you have conservative billionaires who own the media. Like, I'm sorry, I just don't think people should be able to own the media. I don't, because that right there implies the bias. If I sit up there, okay, I'll be honest, if I had the money to do so, if I had the money to start a news organization, it's gonna be pro-black. It's gonna be pro-black. There's the bias. I'm pro-black. Yes. So if I can honestly say that that's what I would do if I had the funds to start a media conglomerate, a media empire, it's going to be specifically pro-black. So if I can say that openly, what makes you think these people who already own these entities ain't already doing that? Because it's happening. And the last point I'll make before I close out this video is the fact that all of these videos, all of these people are saying the same exact thing in one form or another, and it's still gonna fall on deaf ears. There are people that are probably gonna see this video and still not hear a fucking word. Not gonna hear shit. You know why? Because they don't value our opinions. So when things are being done to us, they don't hear it. They don't see it. They deaf, dumb, and blind because they don't see us as people. That 3/5 compromise shit, yeah, turns out they've always tried to dehumanize us. And they do the same shit in the media today, which is why people don't trust the media. People don't trust it. So yes, like Aaron said, you know, find those trusted news sources. Find those independent people who's bringing the facts and not feelings. Because you can't trust legacy media. You can't trust the mainstream. You just can't. There's always going to be a bias. There's always going to be a slant in the wrong direction for us as black folk in their media. So you can't listen to them. As far as I'm concerned, all they do is provide conservatives with talking points. All they do is provide conservative white men and women. All these so-called, all these white supremacists, all they do is provide them with ammunition and bullshit to use against us to talk shit about us. But what y'all fail to realize is we don't listen to shit y'all say. We don't give a fuck about nothing you say. I'm making this video just to point out to you that, yes, the hypocrisy is real. Yes, the media bias is real. But we live in a selective society. People are only going to see and hear what they want. Your algorithm is only going to point you in one direction or the other. So for a lot of people, their algorithm may not even pick this video up because, shit, I'm not a part of their demographic. I definitely don't appeal to conservative people. And I'm glad I don't. I never want to, I never want to be a part of your algorithm. I'm not a conservative. I never will be. Honestly. Conserving what? You want me to conserve the old America? The old racist America? Fuck no. You want to conserve that shit because it was good for you. No, it wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for black folk. The fuck we trying to conserve it for? It needs to be a change. So I'm going to say the phrase that I always say to end these videos that pisses the conservatives off. Stay woke. Salute. I'll see you next time.